Welcome to the Late Night Race Review.
And we're underway and racing down to turn number one. Lando Norris is going to need the job, but it's super aggressive from the pole sitter. Who's off? Who's wide? The lead for Max Verstappen as Lando Norris rejoins. He went bold, but Verstappen got by. And now moving up around the outside and trying to take P2 away. George Russell climbing up to second position. Crucial couple of meters for the Grand Prix for Lando Norris, who wants P2. It's dirty, dusty, and he can't go late on the brakes. It's Max Verstappen. George Russell, the pole sitter, is down to third. Lando Norris has lost places. Oscar Piastri P7 right now. He's lost a couple as well.
Too good, mate. It's far too good.
Oh, yeah, simply lovely that. What a great race. Comes really good. Fire. Well done. Really good execution. You managed it really, really well. So, very happy. Well done, guys. Well done, everyone.
Don't forget to support the podcast by hitting those like, follow, and subscribe buttons.
Welcome on into the Late Night Race Review. My name is Aidan Scott, and joining me this evening is Isidro Gonçalves and Damien Scott. How are you chaps doing this evening?
Yeah, doing great.
Yeah, going well, thank you.
That's good. That's good to hear. It's almost like I can hear Damien even closer this week. Wink, wink. We won't get into that. But anyway, folks, this weekend we arrive back to the Nevada desert. I can't even speak, I'm that tired. To the Nevada desert, to the good old Sin City, to a track that has crowned champions in the past and a track that at this stage we can probably all say definitely doesn't agree with the McLaren Formula One team. That's right, folks. It's the Las Vegas Grand Prix. Chaps, where do I even begin with this weekend? Because between an extremely difficult and exciting qualifying session that actually seen Formula One cars use full wet tyres and God knows how long, to Lewis Hamilton then qualifying in P20, on-track battles which were just awesome to watch, and a title fight that is probably now going to go down to the final race in Abu Dhabi. Las Vegas didn't disappoint, chaps. This was definitely an exciting weekend. But look, before we get into all the action and all the drama and all that kind of stuff, we do have a tiny bit of F1 news to cover. So firstly, a big congratulations to former Iron Dames WEC driver Dorian Pan for being crowned the F1 Academy World Champion. Definitely some exciting action in that race in Las Vegas over the weekend, and a big congrats to the team and Dorian for that victory. And then lastly as well, the Audi F1 team unveiled their concept car ahead of the 2026 season. And even though it's just a concept car, seeing it really does get you excited for next season. Just all these little teasers and all these little mentions about 2026, it's definitely getting even more exciting. So definitely lots to look forward to when it comes to the 2026 launch event next year. So folks, qualifying. It was wet and it was Vegas. A combination you never thought you'd see, but you love to see it. And to be honest, I was awake at the crack arse of dawn to watch both the qualifying and the main race. So forgive me if I start to doze off for a little bit during this episode, but we do need to jump on into this because it was a mixture of sessions between Q1, Q2 and Q3. So obviously kicking it off in Q1, all the cars came out on wet tires. Well, not all the cars. It was actually Aston Martin that came out on wet tires initially. Most of them were on intermediates, but then after they'd kind of done their outlap, they all just came in for wet tires, and then it was just a complete wet session until eventually we moved into Q2 and Q3. So yeah, everyone swapped over to the wets, and then because pretty much everyone was just going off at the end of the strip, that big long strip at the very end, everyone was just going off into that corner. But unfortunately in Q1 we had Alex Albon who crashed into the wall. So unfortunately, he was out of Q1. Then also as well as a huge shocker, a massive shocker. We didn't think, we literally thought things couldn't get any worse for Lewis Hamilton, but he qualified in P20. I mean, that was just... it was so sad to see. Guys, real quick, let's just quickly talk about this because there's a lot of controversy going on at the moment between Ferrari and their drivers, with Leclerc and Hamilton. And I think it's pretty much with the racing director of Ferrari, or the CEO. I can't remember exactly which position he's in. He's one of the top head honchos, or whatever his name is. Pretty much there the weekend before in Brazil, he kind of he threw out the quote that the drivers should just stop talking and just do the actual racing. Damien, I'm going to bring you in first on this one. What is your opinion on this? I mean, first of all, Lewis Hamilton qualifying P20, 7-time world champion. I mean, and then also just this whole controversy going on. What's your opinion on this?
So I think with the qualifying, yeah, he was a little bit unlucky. Again, I think his team didn't really inform him too well from the pit wall about where he was towards the end of that stint. Yeah, I think that really comes down to Ferrari. Didn't really give him a lot of notice. I think he was running out of time to get back to do a final lap, and then he kind of abandoned it. So, king of the wet usually is our Lewis. So I was quite surprised to see him at the back of the grid. Is it a bit down to him as well? Maybe yes. The whole qualifying in Q1 seemed to be very jam packed again with the wet weather. I think everybody just wanted to get out and get times on the board, and then I suppose when everybody came in to change from inters onto the fully wet tire again, that created a bit of chaos. So yeah, it was a bit of a chaotic qualifying, and yeah, Lewis came off the worst of all in that session. In terms of the leadership statement, sometimes you have to say those things, but I don't think either the timing or the way it was said was really that good, to be honest. Yeah, I don't think they handled that one too well. You've got two fantastic drivers in Lewis Hamilton, who is, he's won more world championships than, half the grid there. So I think you have to kind of take on board what he's saying. And you've also got Charles Leclerc, who's now, he's been around for quite a while as well. So if you're kind of saying this to two senior guys and, you haven't won a championship in, how long has it been now? Over a decade?
Over a decade. I mean, do you know what? I'll get that statistic now for you. You've on it there.
Guess what, Mr. Ferrari? Your drivers are not the problem. You have to sort house before you start, slagging off your drivers in public like that. So, yeah, a little bit of a PR nightmare, I think, from the Ferrari communications department.
So the last time Ferrari won a constructors championship was 2008. That was the last time Ferrari. So they won in 2000, 2001, 2002, 3 and 4. Obviously, the whole Michael Schumacher era. Then 2007 and then 2008. But the last time the Drivers' Championship was won by a Ferrari driver was 2007. So there you go.
Wow. Yeah. Ferrari is the problem. If you jettison in a multi-world champion chip driver and, he starts to fail. Yeah, some of it might be down to him. Some of it might be down to finding his feet. But yeah, I'm sorry, Ferrari. You have to get your house in order in this one, I think.
That's it. It must be the water. That's all I'll say. Isidro, what's your take on this whole Ferrari controversy? I know you like that little joke.
I think Damien summed up well. It's not the right time to throw blame at the drivers. They are particularly aware how bad things are. And it's not like it's their fault. I think it's strategy. The pit wall, it's the main issue that they've been having they need some luck as well. But I think the pit wall and the strategy, it's the main culprit here.
Yeah.
And throwing blame at a time where the drivers need some support, it's not the best move.
Yeah, no, for sure. It definitely isn't the best move. And one thing I will say as well, like considering that this is all Ferrari's doing, and Ferrari, as we just mentioned there, haven't won a constructor since 2008. I have to say, you have to give them credit for two drivers that are currently sitting in 5th and 6th in the Drivers' Championship. Fair play to them. All the odds are going against them, and they still managed to get up there in 5th and 6th. So fair play to both Charles Leclerc and Lewis Hamilton. But look, I think it was just so unfortunate to see Lewis in that sort of position, and especially coming off of the back of a terrible weekend in Brazil. It was just, it just went from bad to worse, probably something he never thought he'd expect. And then on top of that, just the comments, I just think it's just very, very bad timing. And to be honest, for a driver like that, for that caliber, he wants to win another one. He wants to be an 8-time world champion. look, you know, statements like that and situations like this are a really good motivator to move on to a different team very quickly. So definitely watch that space when it comes to Hamilton. But moving on from that, though, folks, at the end of Q1, we had Hamilton, who was out, Albon again, who, as I said, crashed into the wall. Kimi Antonelli, unfortunately, didn't make it into Q2, so he was out. Bortoleto, and then finally Tsunoda, all out in Q1. Moving on to Q2, we then had both Haas cars who went out. We also had Lance Stroll, Colapinto, and then also Nico Hülkenberg. Then pretty much at the end of Q2, going into Q3, there was somewhat of a chance of switching over to intermediates, but at that time, it was still way too wet to actually jump onto the intermediates. So moving into Q3, everyone then swapped over eventually when the track started to dry out. We had somewhat of about maybe 5 or 10 minutes of a difference, and the intermediates were somewhat working, and they did eventually swap over to intermediates. But finishing up with Q1, we had Lando in P1, Max in P2, and Sainz in P3. And I have to say, especially with that lap from Lando Norris, normally in a normal condition when it comes to Las Vegas, usually the lap times are in and around, I think it's like 1 minute 36, 1 minute 35. I think that's roughly what the timings are. But in Q3 there, he managed to pull off a 147.934, and then Max coming in there with a 148.2. So it was definitely very close. And of course, we can't fail to mention Mr. Smooth Operator Carlos Sainz coming in there in P3 with a 148.2. Now, obviously, before we do move on to the race, the big sort of talking point, obviously, going into these last couple of races is the title fight between Lando, Max, and Oscar Piastri. Now, when it came to Piastri, especially in qualifying, I will say this. I feel like he did get a little bit cheated out there on the very last, push lap that he was going. I think when it was like there was a yellow that came out. I can't remember exactly when it was, but he was compromised by that yellow flag. And then also as well, you did have, I think it was Isaac Hadjar that lunged up the side of Oscar Piastri. So unfortunately, he couldn't even get there to the line in time. And then he ended up qualifying in P5. So then moving on to the Sunday, or whatever day it was at the time that I was watching this race, because oh my god, I felt it was still like Saturday morning or afternoon, we had the main event. We were all so excited to watch this at whatever time in the world you were watching it at, and of course it was all coming down there to that lap 1 turn 1 moment. Guys, that was so exciting. Like, I mean, the formation lap, we're all on the edge of our seat here because we can see Lando and Max, back in familiar territory there, ready to just pounce, and you think to yourself, will Max be able to do this? But as the lights went out, everything just went to pot when it came to Lando Norris. He did get somewhat of an okay start, but then the thing about it was that I know Crofty said he was a bit too aggressive when he went into Max. That wasn't aggressive. That was pure just kamikaze into Max Verstappen. That was uber aggressive when it came to that defense. But unfortunately, because of that, going into turn 1, Lando ended up going way too deep. And then, of course, Max and then also George Russell managed to capitalize on top of that mistake. So it ended up being going into turn 2 and then turn 3 and then going into somewhat of the back straight or middle straight, if you want to call it. We had Max, George, and Lando Norris. So that's pretty much how it started off. But guys, here's the thing about this, right? Obviously, look, we'll talk about each team individually and all this kind of stuff. But the first thing I do want to discuss is obviously McLaren. We do need to talk about this team, okay? Because again, as we said, the title fight is ever so close now. Going into this weekend, it was a case, we had, 24 points between Lando and Oscar, and then there was roughly, I can't remember exactly how much it was between Lando and Max, but it was obviously very, very close. But if you kind of look at how this race went for McLaren, the kind of effort that they tried to put in, especially with Piastri. Piastri was struggling on mediums. By lap 15, he was down to P7. By lap 18 or 19, I know Russell came into the pits and then Lando had a bit of clear air to try and catch up to Max. But then it wasn't really until like roughly, I think it was like lap 35 when Lando managed to get by George Russell. So in a 50-lap race, like, again, as I mentioned at the start of this episode, Vegas doesn't really suit McLaren. And I think McLaren know this at this stage now. But I think, obviously, look, when it came to the race finishing up, we had Lando who finished in P2 and then Oscar who finished in P4. But the big shocker of this weekend is the fact that both cars got disqualified because of the plank wear at the rear of the car. It was about 9 millimeters short or whatever it was. It had worn down too much. And that was it. They're gone. But the good thing about this is the fact that all of these points now are just ever so close. We have 24 points, not only between Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri, but we now have 24 points between Lando, Oscar, and Max. First of all, Isidro, I want to get your thoughts on McLaren during this entire weekend. I mean, look, I know you were probably hoping for maybe a bit of a miss up or a mix up from Lando, making a little bit of a mistake, and who knows, maybe Oscar could get back into this title fight. We'd have a little bit of more action or whatever. But did you expect this happening? Did you have this in your deck of cards going into Las Vegas?
No, I did not. I was actually, in a way, it's nice that it happened because it keeps the race going for the last two Grand Prix. But it was interesting to see Lando trying to fight Max on his own terms, but clearly Lando doesn't have the skills to fight Max on his own field, which is the turn one, and well, he paid the price.
Do you think it was a bit too cocky, though? Do you think there was,
it was.
Because like the thing about it is that, yeah, it's good to see him getting his fists out and fighting for this championship and stuff. But do you think that was just a little bit more of Lando's cockiness coming through? Yeah.
Yes. If Lando just kept his race line, his strategy, and not trying to fight Max, probably it would end up the race differently. Well, he would end up disqualifying anyway, but he would get P1 and probably get the podium as a P1 rather than try to fight Max on his own terms. And it just is not there yet. I'm not sure if it ever be at the Max level to fight on this on that third one.
Yeah, and like I know, like the sort of history of Lando and Max, like we seen it, at the start of the year. We also seen it last season. Like when it comes to Lando trying to catch up to Max, we know that he can do it. But obviously in this race, by lap 47, we thought to ourselves, maybe Lando's going to try and do this. He's going to try and catch up to him. But by lap 47, he was down to about an average of 10 to 11 seconds because apparently it came across the radio he had some sort of issue. Now we thought, oh no, was Zandvoort coming back, to haunt him? But it was actually to do with the amount of fuel that they had in the car. They actually didn't fuel it properly for the majority of the race. So he actually had to slow down by lap 47 to try and make up the difference. So obviously by the end of the race, the cars need to be at a certain weight and they can't obviously, exceed that weight. And if they do, obviously they'll get disqualified. But unfortunately, it was a slam dunk when it came to the plank wear. But, I think, look, I have to agree with you. I don't think anyone in this decade is going to be able to catch up to the caliber of Max Verstappen. There will be a different champion for sure, and more than likely, look, I don't know. It's all to play for now when it comes to the end of the season, but I don't think there will ever be someone like or in the same ballpark as Max Verstappen within this particular decade of drivers. I have to agree with you on that one. But Damien, your opinion on this as well, because you even have to look at this. Like we've spoken a lot about Oscar Piastri over the last couple of episodes. Like obviously we've kind of gone down the negative side of approaching Oscar Piastri. I really feel that, this weekend it did go against him. There was a lot that was being pushed against him in terms of just even his race pace. Obviously in the qualifying, it was a different story. He obviously got hindered by the yellow flag. But I have to say, though, he did try and do everything he possibly could to try and fight back there. Like I know obviously he came back and he finished in P4, but again, he got disqualified. But, like what do you make about this whole weekend for McLaren? It just seemed to be, everything seemed to be good for them going into qualifying, but then everything just fell apart in terms of the race.
They qualified well. It was a crazy qualifying session. So yeah, I think those issues with the rain and the wet tires and the chaos in Q1, they did quite well. Obviously, they came out with a pole and a P5 for Oscar starting. Obviously Oscar would have liked to been on the first or second row to have a bit more of an impact in the race, but I think from where he started and where he finished before the disqualification, he had a pretty decent outing. He didn't really seem to get into too many scrapes. I know he had a little bit of a kiss with Lawson at the start. It was just like a little smooch.
A little smooch.
And I was like, oh no, here we go again. Oscar is going to get himself into some sort of trouble here. I think it was maybe more on the Lawson side of things, but on the commentary they were saying, "Oh, I don't know, looks a bit like Oscar might be in trouble here." I was like, "Oh, not again! This poor chap is
it's gone bad to worse."
He's not getting the rub of the green, is he?
No.
So yeah, I think he did okay for where he qualified. And then obviously after the race, they had the disqualification, which is obviously heartbreaking for the two of them, and it spices the whole championship right back up going into the final two races. But they're still in pole position. I'd put it that way, right? I think all Lando needs to do is just win the next race, get it done, and settle the nerves going into the last one as well. So I'd still fancy Norris to do it, but obviously, what happened with the disqualification makes it a lot more viewable for the fans, right? It puts it down to the last race maybe, and we've a few more permutations to come. So for the neutral, it's going to be good.
Because I'll throw not really a curveball, but just looking ahead and looking at Qatar. So looking back at last year's results, even at the sprint race, we had Oscar Piastri, who finished in P1, and Lando finished in P2. But then on the flip side of that, when we had the actual main race, we had Piastri, who finished in third, and Norris, who finished in 10th. Do you think Norris is capable of winning this next two races, if you want to say the sprint and the actual main race? Because realistically, in order for him to have a comfortable victory as F1 world champion going into Abu Dhabi, he would need to win the sprint race and the main race. And obviously, look, if he even finished second or third in the main race in Abu Dhabi, he would still be the champion. So he would need to win the next two sort of race stints, if you want to say, but do you think it's possible? Do you think he could do it?
Anything's possible, right?
I suppose anything is possible.
But in terms of comparing one race from last year to this one coming up, sometimes it's a little bit hard. It's not exactly always apples to apples. There's always something we forget about, and the reason why Lando finished 10th, couldn't tell you why it was, but it doesn't sound normal for him. But I think we've got a couple of really fantastic races coming up in terms of viewing for the fans out there. And as I said, I think my money's still on Lando, but I think there's still going to be a few twists and curves in this story before we finish out the season.
100%. I think what it paints a picture now is that, first of all, Max Verstappen is not giving up without a fight, and neither is Piastri. You've got two drivers there, both on equal second, going after that person in first. Isidro, what do you think going into Qatar? Do you think Norris is capable of doing this, winning the sprint and the main Grand Prix, and to somewhat go on and be the champion now?
Yeah, I think Lando. We all know that Lando is the double C driver for 2025. Today, it just spiced the things up a little bit for Qatar, but I think Norris has a comfortable lead to end the car to win in Qatar. I'm pretty sure of that. I'm not even having Piastri in the same conversation of winning the championship. He had his chance. He's gone now.
Those are strong words, Isidro. I never thought I'd hear you saying this. This is a different Isidro we're seeing here the last couple of episodes. Took an entire season to break him down. But no, I agree.
And Max will put a good fight, but I think Max also knows that he doesn't. It takes a lot of stars to be aligned, a lot of planets to be aligned for Max to be the champion. I would like that to. I think McLaren deserves that lesson of what they did this season, but I think Lando will get the championship. If it's not this year, then I don't see Lando winning again.
Yeah, no, totally. Look, I think I have to agree with both of you on this one. If I was a betting man, I would say, Lando for world champion. But there's a part of me who really does want to see Max win the world championship. I really do. I don't know. It's just how his season just started off so shite, and then it came back slowly and slowly and slowly, and now he's just here ready to pounce going into the last two races. So yeah, if I was a betting man, Lando Norris, but I would really really love to see Max win this. I think it'd be awesome. I think it'd be a great way to finish this up. But yeah, look, very disappointing weekend for McLaren. A lot of McLaren fans definitely had high hopes for this weekend, especially for Lando Norris fans as well. But yeah, disappointing one for McLaren. But of course, look, we move on to Qatar, and yeah, we'll McLaren will forget about this weekend for sure. But moving on to the next team we need to talk about is Mercedes. Damien, I definitely want to get your opinion on Mercedes this weekend, because it was definitely a mixture of emotions for the Mercedes crew. Because first of all, obviously, because of the lap one, turn one, it wasn't even an incident. It was just a moment with Lando Norris and Max Verstappen. Obviously, George Russell, he capitalized on top of that mistake. He got there into P2, and he really did well to keep Lando Norris off of his tail. Now, obviously, the likes of Crofty and I know Jensen Button were saying like, oh yeah, look, Lando's probably just backing off to save his tires, and maybe he was, maybe he wasn't. Maybe he was just finding it difficult to catch up. But you could see the typical sort of George Russell moment here. Like he won last year in Vegas, and again, when you win in a track in the same place, you want to do it twice. So obviously he tried to go for pole, but typical George Russell, he just took everything out of the car and out of the tires, and then I think it was roughly by lap 18 or 19, he had to go and swap onto the hard tires. So he went in, he pitted and swapped over to the hard tires, and then it somewhat, not saying difficult, a bit of a challenge to get back up to P2 there. But then eventually by lap 35, the performance of the car just started to wear off, because apparently he was complaining that there was something to do with the steering. I don't know if it was the power steering in the car or what it was, but he's having some issue with that anyway. But I think definitely a disappointing sort of result for George Russell, but still very impressive considering Mercedes sort of results over this season. It's been ups and downs for Mercedes for sure, but I think obviously the biggest disappointing thing for any fan of Antonelli was the fact that he got that 5-second penalty at the start of the race for a false start. Now, looking back at that sort of replay, I know they had it in slow motion and all that kind of stuff, it really didn't look like he jumped the start. Even like, yes, there was a tiny minuscule movement of his tire, but even in that movement, everyone else kind of moved at the same time. So I don't know, I feel like they were kind of pulling at straws with that one. But look, moving on throughout the race, Antonelli, I have to bring or shine a light on Antonelli in particular. What a defensive drive yet again. In Brazil, he had an amazing defensive drive against against Max Verstappen, and there was somebody, I think it was Charles and all that kind of stuff in the sprint race. But this weekend against Oscar Piastri and Charles Leclerc to finish off in P4 or P5, I think it was. But obviously because of the disqualification, he managed to finish in P3, but unfortunately he didn't get on the podium because at that time he had finished in P5 because of the penalty. But yeah, Damien, your thoughts on Mercedes this weekend? What did you think?
For me, I think they were team of the weekend, to be honest. They've been on the up, I think, since the halfway point of the season. And a couple of weekends didn't go great for them. Obviously qualifying for Vegas, George was in 4th, and Kimi obviously in 17th. That wasn't a great start. So when obviously I saw those results, I was like, don't know what's going to happen here for Mercedes in this race. But the turnaround from their qualifying results into their obviously podium finishes after the disqualifications was a heck of a turnaround. I thought Russell did quite well because he was complaining, say, early enough about the steering issue. So I think it felt heavy, he was saying. Yeah. So obviously when you're driving around in wet conditions, and particularly for the qualifying where the steering issue first came up, if it's heavy, it's going to be difficult to control. You kind of want a little bit more feeling and feedback and quick steering, to get yourself out of trouble.
Especially in the wet.
As Albon found out in the qualifying. So fair play to him for getting it into P4 for the qualifying. But as he got into the race, then I think he just kind of put too much work into the tires in his first stint, and he was complaining about the graining situation there. So again, he had to back off a little bit, and then when he came out after his pit stop, the steering issue came back to haunt him again. So he kind of had to manage that situation. I think after the race, he was saying he kind of got into it and he was able to manage the steering problem. He corrected his driving to try and counter that. But again, it's not something you want to have to, an extra thing you have to think about, obviously, when you're going at 220 miles an hour down a straight coming into a corner, So
Yeah.
I think from that aspect where he had those issues, it was a heck of a drive from him, obviously getting second place after the disqualification. Who cares, right? If you're a Mercedes fan or a Mercedes driver, you've got a second and a third place, and that's all that goes down in the record books, But I suppose for Kimi then, qualifying 17th, it was like, will he at least maybe get in the top 10? But it was, again, a heck of a drive from him in the race itself. And as you're saying there in the intro to this piece about him holding up Piastri and who else was there? He was kind of holding up. I can't remember exactly.
Piastri and Charles.
It was Charles, yeah. Charles was having a fantastic race. He was overtaking for fun. So he kind of held those two guys right behind him for a long period of time, and that gave George then a nice little bit of room to kind of keep him safe. And then obviously he found a bit of pace himself, Kimi, and then tried to make up the gap because he had that 5-second penalty. So he kind of made that up, I think. Mostly he didn't really drop beyond where they were expecting. So fantastic drive from Kimi. It was incredible,
Yeah. And
I think we've kind of seen past 2 or 3 races are really maturing and improving, Kimi Antonelli. So you have to hand it to the 2 drivers. They did really well in really difficult circumstances today.
Yeah, and to be honest, though, I'm very disappointed for Kimi, especially the fact that, like, obviously after any sort of Formula One race, when let's say there's a penalty or a disqualification that's dished out to one of the top 3 finishers or whatever it is, obviously, getting to celebrate in the paddock somewhere or in a room by yourself or maybe with a couple of people, obviously it's not the best of things. But obviously when it comes to Las Vegas, like, the history of the last couple of years of winning there is that, the top 3 or any of the drivers, they all go out to the casinos and clubs. Unfortunately, Kimi couldn't do either.
Too young
to go out to the clubs and celebrate. So not only did he get that P3 podium and not be able to go onto the podium, he had to literally celebrate with a couple of people somewhere in some room somewhere in Vegas. You gotta feel sorry for the chap, you really do, because, like, honestly, as you were saying there, like, you've really seen a maturing. I know that's kind of the sort of the opposite side of him not being able to go out to the clubs, but you've really seen this driver mature over the last couple of races. It is great to see. It really is. And, like, honestly, he is the best of the rookies, like, in terms of, like, the championship or the drivers' championship, he is P7, and he's the best of the rookies this season. And if I had to give it to somebody this season, it would definitely be Kimi Antonelli as rookie of the year. That would be my vote anyway. But disappointing for Kimi, and I hope obviously going into Qatar, hopefully it's a little bit better for him.
Well, if he can manage his tires like he did today, I'd say he can manage a few beers as well. He'll be all right.
That's
P2 or lap 2 or 3, I think he came in for the hards and he ran to the end. That was incredible management from him, and again to do that stint where he was holding off Leclerc and Piastri with tires that were absolutely cooked. That was some job. So whoever's in Vegas tonight, go and get Kimi a few beers, and it'll be grand. He'll be okay. Say nothing.
Yeah, exactly. Bring them up to the old hotel room and have a good old party up there with Kimi. He needs a celebration. Or when he gets back to, was it Bologna or something like that, where he's from, or somewhere like that anyway, have a good old celebration back there. But definitely a team that could do with a few beers, not for celebratory purposes. I can't even speak, I'm too tired. But more so just to try and deal with the pain of this season. Ferrari, they definitely could do with a few drinks. Citro, we do need to talk about Ferrari, because obviously, coming off of the back of that qualifying session, my God, it was absolutely awful for them. Now, I know obviously for Charles, not so much, but for Lewis in particular. But one thing I will say, okay, I know Lewis has had a very, very long string of bad luck performances here with Ferrari over probably since mid-season onwards. But to see the kind of level of determination that he still has, like even in Brazil, he tried to give it everything. But here in Las Vegas, by lap 6, the guy was up from P19 all the way up to P12. The guy really put in his performance, and it really shows that even when everything is fighting against him, and if he's been, pushed down to the very bottom of his emotional threshold or whatever it may be, when pretty much if he's getting kicked while he's down, he still fights back and he still puts on a performance. When I seen this, I was like, oh my God, he might actually get into the points here. Now, obviously, eventually he did because of the result of the disqualification. He did manage to finish P8. But on the flip side of that, now, again, yes, I know when it came to the incident with Alex Albon, like my sort of question, first of all, I do want to ask you, Isidro, do you think he should have maybe received some sort of repercussion for that? Because look, inevitably Albon had to retire the car, and I don't really think that is all that fair, because again, I know it was just, you could say it was a racing incident, he just brushed off him and took off the front wing, but do you think maybe he should have received a little bit of a repercussion with that one? And then look, we'll kind of talk about Charles on the flip side of that.
No, I think that was all Albon's fault, and even retiring the car of Albon, I think it was the best thing, because he was having an awful race. That incident, the fact that the team radio wasn't working, the fact that he went to the pit to get the front wing replaced, and they didn't do anything. So it was a terrible weekend for Albon. And I think Hamilton had nothing to do with it. It had, but it was not his fault. He was just trying to change his luck, basically.
Yeah.
But it also helped that Bortoleto was like a wrecking ball, cleared all the cars in front of him. That short helped make Hamilton a little bit happier and reach the P8. But yeah, I think Hamilton did his best with the car that Ferrari gave him this weekend.
No, for sure. And a quick little side mention, that Bortoleto incident on lap 1, that, like, I know obviously there was a video that has been circulating where Bortoleto did go up to Lance Stroll and apologize, but right well, that was payback from Brazil. Straight into Lance Stroll, and that was it. Lap 1, turn 1, both of them out.
I'd like to think that Stroll is like, oh, so this is how they feel.
Yeah, exactly. So this is what happens when you make stupid moves. But yeah, look, on the flip side of Lewis Hamilton, though, we do need to talk about Charles Leclerc, because oh my God, Charles Leclerc was having an amazing race. Now, look, Las Vegas has always been very good to Charles Leclerc. Like, we've seen it back in 2023 when Vegas was introduced. He had a very great weekend, back at the very start of there, qualifying P1 and then eventually coming there P2 in 2023. And then last year, can't really remember where he did finish, but he did have a good result in Vegas last year. But I think Vegas is good to him. I think he does like that track, and I think it suits his sort of driving style and his aggression and things like that. I know obviously, yes, we did talk about there the fact that Kimi was able to defend Piastri and both Charles, but it just kind of seemed like every lap when I was looking at obviously when I was awake at certain points of that race, Charles Leclerc was overtaking somebody. He was just getting up there, it was P6, P5, P4. And I thought to myself, oh my God, is this going to be like the comeback story of Ferrari? We have Charles on the podium and potentially Hamilton. Now, obviously it didn't go that way, but like that was an incredible performance by Charles Leclerc. Eventually, and again, because of the disqualification, look, Charles did finish P6, but because of the disqualification, he finished in P4, and again Lewis Hamilton finished in P8. What, Isidro, your thoughts on Charles? I mean, he was just on fire. He actually looked like a Ferrari driver this weekend.
Yeah, Leclerc was on fire. His race, he deserved the podium. It was Antonelli. I think Antonelli he did a great job defending Piastri and defending Leclerc. But I think Leclerc truly deserved his drive. He deserved a podium. It was less than a second that he finished behind Antonelli. So yeah, it was a great drive for Leclerc.
Yeah.
He's definitely trying to change his luck in Ferrari and trying to save the year for Ferrari. But today it wasn't the day.
Yeah, like he finished 200th of a second behind Kimi Antonelli. Like that just, that just kind of goes to show, like the determination he had there. Like, again, I know Piastri got disqualified, but I think at this stage now, look, Ferrari's days are numbered for 2025. Like after slipping down away from P3 to P4, like they're sitting there at the moment on 378 points in the championship. I know Charles is trying to give it everything that they possibly can to even try and claw back and claim P3, but there's no way they can come back now and take back that P2. It was looking good for them for a while, but it's just been a terrible end of year for Ferrari. But look, I know Charles, and obviously we've seen now with Hamilton as well, they're never going to give up. They're going to keep on giving everything they possibly can. But I think you need to kind of ask yourself the question, when is enough when it comes to what's going on there at Ferrari? I think at the end of the day, I think Ferrari need to get rid of like the ego that they have, that they're Ferrari and they make fast cars. I think they just need to get rid of that ego, make a fast car and have good management, and you will win championships again. They have two incredible drivers. I mean, back in the day when they had Michael Schumacher and Barrichello, two incredible racing drivers, but obviously Schumacher was the one there winning the championships and winning the races and stuff like that. They have two incredible drivers, a 7-time world champion. Going into 2026, they need to get their head out of their ass and they need to get back, excuse the pun, but they need to get their ass in gear here, because obviously, look, again, those comments by that Ferrari CEO or racing CEO, whatever his name is, I mean, just terrible timing. They just don't know what they're doing when it comes to that management there. But look, again, good result overall for Ferrari. It went from bad to a very, very good result. Charles in P4 and Lewis Hamilton in P8. But moving on from Ferrari, we do need to talk about a team that we have not talked about in I don't know how long we've talked about this team. I'd say it was Coda the last time we talked about them. Williams. I mean, look, I know Alex Albon, yes, he did have a shite weekend, from crashing into the barrier during qualifying to then DNFing during the main race. Alex Albon, the last couple of races, he's not having a good time, I think. It's very disappointing to see, because like Albon, he is a great driver. He can put in some really, really good races, but Vegas just wasn't it. I think Albon was just kind of sick at Vegas by the time he DNF'd. But Carlos Sainz, on the other hand, had a very good weekend. Damien, look, when it comes to Carlos Sainz, qualifying P3, and then again, look, I know when it came to his overall race pace, he did have good race pace initially, but it just kind of sort of seemed that about not even halfway through, like I think it was when the first sort of bout of pit stops were coming around, Sainz just kind of dropped off in a big way. Like I know he finished technically P7, but because of the disqualification, he obviously was bumped up to P5. Still an amazing result. I'm not discrediting that whatsoever. It was still a really good drive for Carlos Sainz, because he's had a serious run of bad luck when it comes to races. But overall, Damien, what did you think of Williams this weekend?
Don't diss my Williams, right?
I'm not dissing them. I said that. I'm not dissing them.
Don't diss them.
But yeah, what did you think?
Mr. Smooth Operator just drinking his tea. I had to laugh at the interview with Ted, where Ted was asking Carlos about the Ferrari comments, and he's just like, none of my business anymore. I'm just like the frog drinking the tea. And I was like, what the hell is he talking about? And he's like, oh, you know the meme? And then it's like, oh, okay, I do know the meme, yeah. So that started off a really positive Williams weekend for me. He was Carlos is having fun again. He's starting to find his rhythm. Obviously, it's not a Ferrari he's driving. The car is not as good, but it's probably better in other ways than Ferrari in some aspects. But yeah, obviously, it's overall the package is not as good as what he was used to. But after kind of a difficult start, he's having some really good results for that team. Sorry, go ahead. What were we going to say?
No. Go ahead there. I'm actually doing something. I'm doing something with Google Gemini. Just you go ahead and do what you need to do there. You continue on there and I'll get back to you. You might already know what I'm doing.
Well, let's see what that is.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think qualifying was difficult for both the drivers in the beginning, and obviously per Alex, aquaplaned and lost his car and tipped it into the wall and thankfully he limped home and he was able to let everybody else finish their qualifying session. So obviously his misery started in Q1 of qualifying, and Carlos got it into P3, which was a fantastic result for him. His time seemed to be up there and consistent throughout, each of the 3 qualifying rounds. So coming into the race, I was thinking, he's definitely going to, be in and around the top 3 somehow. Obviously, I don't think he was going to get a podium, but I think he had a decent race overall. And coming in P7, I think the team would have been pretty happy with that one because, obviously there was a fast Ferrari in Leclerc and around there, and Piastri was, he was going okay. So, I think in the bigger picture, they were happy with P7, and ecstatic then to get bumped up to P5. I think he got in the end with the disqualifications, but poor old Alex was having a weekend of it, wasn't he? In his race, I think in the formation lap, the radio went, so he had no radio communication for the whole race, and then he had a bit of a tip with Hamilton, I think it was, or Charles, can't remember. I think it was Hamilton, because Hamilton was down the back as well. So he didn't know what the damage was like, and they couldn't really tell him. And he came in for a pit, and they had to change the nose cone. I think eventually for him, he came in for that. So throughout the race, he didn't really have any feedback in terms of that radio communication. So he didn't really get any messages from the wall to get him to push, or did we retire the car? Is everything was going old school through the pit boards every time he came around to the lap. You could see him kind of veering over to the left hand side to kind of see some messages when he's flying by at 200 miles per hour. So I think from the beginning his race was run. It was going to be a DNF for him, I think, pretty much after all these things happened to him. It's never one little thing. It's always a series of unfortunate events. But good points from Carlos. And they kind of have that 5th place all but sewn up at this stage, which from, the best of the rest perspective, that's where Williams need to be. And then obviously you go from there. So, Mr. Smooth Operator did the business this weekend in very difficult conditions. So, last 2 races, nothing to lose. So hopefully we can get some points on the board to make that gap a little bit smaller to what's looking like Ferrari in 4th place.
Yeah, no, 100%. I think, obviously, 5th place is definitely sewn up for Williams. I mean, Racing Bulls, they are very close to Williams, but I think, with 2 races left, hopefully Williams can hold on to that. But just for our listeners and for you chaps as well, if you were wondering what I was doing with Google Gemini, I was trying to, when you mentioned about Carlos Sainz, the Kermit the Frog meme, I was going to try and do a photo of Carlos Sainz drinking tea, but unfortunately Google Gemini failed me and said, I can't help with editing images of people who are in the public image or public figures. Is there anyone else you'd like to try? So Google Gemini, you failed me in a big way. So womp, womp, womp. But if there's someone out there who can make a photo of Carlos Sainz doing the Kermit the Frog meme, you can. Deadly. All right, Damien, I'll wait for that.
Coming up.
Someone needs to make that.
But that can be the thumbnail of the next podcast. Yeah,
of the next episode. 100%. But AI failing me, and everyone's throwing all their chips into AI. Can't do that. Can't make a Carlos Sainz drinking tea meme. I'm only kidding. But anyway, look, moving on from Williams, we do need to talk about our last team, which is Red Bull, because obviously Max Verstappen was the talk of the town going into this race, and obviously after the result of the entire race itself, Max Verstappen definitely was the talk of the town. Yuki Tsunoda, not so much. We've everyone has their opinion on Yuki at this stage, and we kind of know the lay of the land. It's a little bit disappointing to see how Yuki's season has gone, but again, curse of that second Red Bull seat, it strikes again. But look, starting off with Red Bull, first of all, we had Max qualifying on P2. What an incredible performance he put in there, even with the visibility to qualify qualify there in P2 as well at the very end. But again, look, he is a absolute master in wet conditions. But then again, when it came to the main race itself, after that lap one, turn one moment with Lando, he just went straight off into the distance. It was typical Max capitalizing on a situation that just absolutely threw straight into his face. And he was like, yeah, I'm taking this and I'm running away with it. And it just kind of seemed like old school Max Verstappen, just, you know, like, yes, 5 or 6 seconds down the road, but he just kept on building and building that gap up there. And even with the VSCs and everything, we had 2 VSCs because of the debris from, I think it was Alex Albon's wing and Liam Lawson's wing and stuff like that. Even after those VSCs, he still managed to control the race. Like, yeah, he had George Russell on his back for all of about maybe 4 or 5 laps, possibly. But obviously, you know, he wasn't getting by Max Verstappen. But I also thought it was funny. I actually seen a quote that came out there, or it was a statement or something that Max said during one of the press interviews. He was like, he heard the call, or he heard the radio announcement to Lando that Lando's engineer came across the radio and said, look, we've gotten by Russell now, we can catch Max and let's do this. And I think Max said something like, he was like, yeah, I found that funny when he said that. Obviously it wasn't going to happen, but it gave me the motivation to go on and win the race even more, so it worked against Lando. Something to that nature anyway. I just absolutely love this guy. He is just a racing machine, and it's just what going back to what I said earlier on, I know obviously if I was a betting man, I'd put my money on Lando, but again, this is why I just want to see Max win this. He has just given it everything, and he is just, I think he, like, yeah, look, earlier on the year, he had somewhat of a very hot head on his shoulders when it came to the whole George Russell incident in Barcelona. But I really feel Max, I don't know. It's not even that it's a different Max Verstappen that we're seeing here at the end of the season. It just seems like he's a guy who's just blocking out everything, and he's just focused on getting this championship finished and getting that championship win. But Isidro, what was your thoughts on Red Bull this weekend? Just Max Verstappen's performance alone. Like, I know obviously Yuki, yes, overall, and because of the disqualification of the 2 McLaren drivers, Yuki did finish in P12. But at this stage, look, it is the Max Verstappen Formula One team that that we talk about when we talk about Red Bull. Isidro, what did you think?
I think at this stage, the only help that Tsunoda can do is if he pulls a Latifi in Abu Dhabi.
Or a Kimi or a George.
Yeah, because otherwise, just racing, that's not his thing anymore. And Verstappen, he just did a clean, smooth race. I'm pretty sure that he was very comfortable, but at the same time paying attention, because Las Vegas, one distraction and you hit the wall and that's it. Albon, pretty sure could write the book about that. Mm-hmm. But this weekend, Max was just flawless. The pit crew was also very good, and I think they had a good time this weekend. Max, he basically let Lando be Lando, and that was it. He took the lead of the race and never let it down. So, yeah, hope he keeps this going and keep the race, keep the hope alive until Abu Dhabi.
Yeah, no, 100%. And it was a smooth weekend for Red Bull, I think, you know, compared to Brazil, where it just, everything seemed to be going against them, like in terms of like the car's performance. Like, obviously, look, we've spoken about Brazil, but it just seems to be a complete 180 that they've done with that car. And obviously the main thing about that is the engine upgrade that they took when Max obviously had to start in the pits. So again, giving him everything that he possibly can to fight for this championship. And as I said, that's one of the reasons why I just want to see this guy win. He has given it everything he possibly can. As I said, if I was a betting man, I know Lando is more than likely the realistic option to win this championship. But the fact that that we're now sitting in a situation where we have Max Verstappen and Oscar Piastri sitting on 366 points each, 24 points off of Lando Norris. Like, I don't know if we were able to even predict something like this happening like halfway through the season, even, you know, like as things starting to kind of form. Like, we knew obviously McLaren were going to be the favorites to win the constructors, But in terms of the Drivers' Championship, we never seen this coming. We thought at one stage it was like, oh, look, it's a slam dunk, it's Oscar Piastri. But to see this happen now, this is just incredible. Guys, this is what we want to see. We want to see this close battling, this close racing. And again, look, I don't wish any ill fate on anybody or any driver in any race or any situation. I hope everyone that manages to finish comfortably and safely or whatever. But hopefully, hopefully we have a situation where it comes down to the final race in Abu Dhabi. That's all I'll say in the most safest way possible. But who knows? One can hope. But on the flip side of that as well, who knows? Max could probably do that without any of that kind of shit happening. And that's what Max is capable of doing. And I hope he can. And I hope he does it. But yeah, look, all to play for now. It was a fantastic weekend. I know at some stages of the race, look, if you were up very early, as I was, to watch that race, it might have seemed a little bit difficult to watch it at times. But look, it was a fantastic weekend. I always love Las Vegas. I loved it from the very first year it came in, 2023. I remember getting up at like 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning to watch that. I love it every year, and I'll continue to do it every year until I just don't care anymore to get up at that time of the day. But no, it was brilliant. But look, folks, we do need to talk about the results. So our top 10 finishers for the Las Vegas Grand Prix for 2025 was Max Verstappen in P1. Because of the disqualification, we had George Russell in P2, Kimi Antonelli in P3, Charles Leclerc in P4, Carlos Sainz in P5, Isaac Hajar in P6, Nico Hulkenberg in P7, Lewis Hamilton in P8, Esteban Ocon in P9, and Oliver Behrman in P10. Both Haas cars coming in there in the points, but obviously if you think about it, because of the disqualification, technically, yeah, but it's still good that they got points. But when it comes to our DNFs, we had Bortoleto, who was out on lap 1 because of his crash into Stroll, and obviously Stroll was the second DNF because of Bortoleto into him, and then finally Alex Albon because of that incident with Lewis Hamilton. So yeah, 3 DNFs, and then also we had 2 disqualifications. We've already talked about it multiple times already. Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri because of the skid block issues underneath the car. Yeah, very disappointing. Like, all that effort put into that weekend and it was all for nothing. You know? So yeah, very disappointing one. So folks, we'll move on to our next segment, our driver of the day, our dick of the day, and our loser of the day. Damien, who was your driver of the day, your dick of the day, and your loser of the day for Las Vegas?
Driver of the day for me was Kimi Antonelli. Was it P17 to P3 in the end? That's pretty incredible.
Yeah.
I actually thought Hamilton did okay as well today. He was close. Max too, obviously, but yeah, I think I'll give it to Kimi.
Yeah.
Next one, dick of the day, Bortoleto. Yeah, torpedoed my man, Lawrence. The other Stroll. What's his name?
Don't Lance. Give anyone hope here, Damien.
Per old Bortoleto, he's got 5-place grid penalty for the next race as a result of that. That just came in there a little while ago.
Oh no!
So Gabby, yeah, sorry about that. Don't hate me, Brazil, and all the Brazilian people I know. Loser of the day, yeah, has to be McLaren. You know, that's an easy one, I think.
Yeah. Slam dunk with that one with McLaren. It was, yeah, pretty much. I totally agree with that. Isidro, who was your driver of the day, your dick of the day, and your loser of the day?
Driver of the day will be Max Verstappen. He started P2, he let Lando do his thing, which is bottle the car, and then just kept going and win the race. So, driver of the day. Dick of the day, yeah, Bortoleto. He just... I know he's a rookie, but he should know better that you just don't go that fast on turn 1 and end up clearing the turn 1 for Hamilton to just get a few positions. But yeah, still a dick move. And loser of the day, yeah, McLaren. Not fault of their own. Well, they should know better, but still, Lando, Oscar, and McLaren, they got disqualified. Sad day, but yeah, that happens.
Yeah, shit happens, and as I said, it just really felt like it was just a complete waste of time for McLaren after that. I think obviously going into each race, that I think that's a crucial part of the car that you need to make sure that is not getting damaged in any way, shape, or form to completely jeopardize your chances of getting any result. So yeah, womp womp for McLaren this weekend. Do you know what, guys? My prediction, or not my prediction, sorry, my DDL, if you want to say, is very, very similar. Now, I did have Max Verstappen as my driver of the day. Look, I will give it to him. An amazing race. He controlled it. But you know what? I'm actually changing that. I'm giving it to Kimi. Damien pointed that out in a great way there. Like, going from, what was it, P17 or whatever it was, finishing up in P3, and the guy didn't even get to go out and celebrate. I mean, I'm going to give my driver of the day, if that's any consolation to Kimi Antonelli. I know, who knows even if he listens to the podcast, but I'm going to give my driver of the day to Kimi Antonelli. Definitely a great race for him. My dick of the day, I'm just going to give it to Las Vegas for having that race on so early, because, oh my God, 4 a.m. I got up at 3:30 a.m. in the morning to watch that. And I know a lot of people will be like, well, you didn't have to. You just could have recorded it. But no, I want to watch it live. And it was on at 4 a.m. So Las Vegas, you're a dick for being that early for us watching over here in Europe. But then also for my loser of the day, very similar to you guys, McLaren. I'm giving it to the entire team. That was just a womp womp weekend for McLaren. So hopefully, look, they can turn it around and make Qatar over there in the lovely Lusail track. Hopefully they can make it a good weekend for themselves. So yeah, folks, look, let's move on over to our predictions game, because obviously last weekend in the predictions game, Damien took the top spot in the championship for our predictions game. But look, the guys did send in the predictions for the likes of Dave. He did send it in there for the Las Vegas Grand Prix. So we're going to start it off with Dave. He had Lando in P1, Max in P2, and Russell in P3. Now, here's the thing. Initially, I'd say when he got his predictions in and he's seen the result, he was probably like, do you know what? Yeah, okay, at least I didn't get the top two. But with the disqualification, Russell moved up to P2. So unfortunately, that's 0 points for each of those. Now, he did say he had Gasly outside of the top 10, which was correct. Even with the disqualification, Gasly was outside of the top 10. And then he had Sainz inside of the top 10. So that's 2 points for Dave. Isidro, your predictions for Las Vegas?
So I had Max P1, Russell P2, and Norris P3. So close.
Oh my God. But it actually did work out for you, though.
Yeah,
you know.
And then I had Lawson outside top 10 and Albon inside top 10.
Oh,
Albon was disappointing.
Oh,
that's a decent haul though. 3 points.
That's what I mean.
Yeah,
not
bad.
That disqualification really worked out in Isidro's favor. Hang on a second. I've got a conspiracy here. Isidro, did you secretly fly to Vegas this week and do a little bit of like tinkering to those McLaren cars just so you could catch up in the predictions championship?
That would be an expensive setup.
That'd be an expensive 3 points that you just claimed there. But no, that is 3 points overall for Isidro. Definitely good weekend for you. My predictions, unfortunately, weren't that great. I had Lando in P1, Max in P2, and Leclerc in P3. At one stage, I thought to myself, oh, this could be a possibility. But by God, I was so wrong. And then, of course, on top of that as well, I had Nico Hulkenberg outside the top 10, but I did have Sainz inside the top 10. So I did manage to score at least 1 point this weekend. Damien, what were your predictions?
I had Lando in P1, I had Russell P2, and Max P3.
Kind of worked out for you as well in a way.
Not too bad, yeah. And then I had Gasly outside the top 10 as my flop, which was a point. And smooth operator, Mr. Carlos Sainz himself inside the top 10. So yeah, 3 points there, which is a decent one.
Oh, that is nice. So it looks like Damien and Isidro are winners of this weekend's Las Vegas Grand Prix. That is awesome. Wow, good predictions, guys. Definitely worked out for you this weekend. But yeah, of course, look, as a result, when it comes to the actual table, Damien is now on 35 points. Dave is on 33. I'm currently on 29, and Isidro is on 27.
Oh, Abu Dhabi will be decided.
I think it's going to come down to Abu Dhabi, folks. It's going to be the last race of the season. Oh, this is going to be an interesting one. But look, we do need to talk about Qatar. So Dave, he did send in his predictions for Qatar. So he has Max in P1, Lando in P2, and Russell in P3. Then he has Ocon outside the top 10, and then Lawson inside the top 10. That's a bold move there when it comes to Liam Lawson. Isidro, what are your predictions for Qatar?
I have Norris P1, Max P2, and Leclerc P3.
Oh, very nice. Interesting about Leclerc. Yeah, that's a good. Yeah, I could see Ferrari doing that maybe.
Yeah, he's feeling good with Las Vegas. And to be fair, I did put Max in P1 and then Norris P2, but then I thought no, Qatar will be Norris day. So yeah, so Norris P1. Then I have Hülkenberg outside top 10 and Alonso back to the top 10.
Very nice. And I mean, to be honest, just going back to that Charles Leclerc predictions there, if you kind of look at last year, and I know again Damien mentioned it, you can't really compare the two seasons, but Charles Leclerc did finish in P2 last year in Qatar. Just saying.
So I give a discount and finish P3.
There you go. So who knows? Isidro could be coming out there with max points and overtaking me in the table, and I could be the what do we call it?
Backmaker.
Yeah, that's it. But of course, with my predictions, I have Lando P1, Max P2, and Piastri P3. And then I have Ocon outside the top 10, and then Alonso inside the top 10. That's a bold prediction from me there. Alonso inside the top 10 in Qatar. Damien, what are your predictions?
I have Lando P1, Max P2, and Russell P3.
Oh.
And I have Ocon outside the top 10 as my flop, and my surprise is Liam Lawson inside the top 10.
Oh, very bold.
So I had that in there, and I saw Dave was updating the spreadsheet in real time.
Oh,
so I saw his coming in, and he had Max, Lando, Russell, and he had Ocon, and say you guys are going for Alonso. I was like, what's Dave going to do here? And Lawson inside the top 10. I was like, there's championship decisions happening here. So we just have one slight variation that he has Max P1 and Lando P2, Russell P3, but I have Lando P1, Max P2, and Russell P3, and then the same flop and surprise. So the championship could be won or lost on that decision.
It could be, or who knows, Isidro could come back and claim 5 points overall, and he could be putting it to both of you. God knows what could happen there.
One can dream.
One can dream. But yeah, definitely all to play for. We're all very, very close here. Only 2 points between myself and Isidro, and 2 points between Dave and Damien. It's definitely getting very exciting now, folks. So yeah, look, again, we'll see what happens in Qatar. Qatar is next weekend, I do believe. Isn't it? Yeah, next weekend is Qatar. So that's going to be a very, very interesting one. I love Losail. I love that track. I know a lot of people find that track very boring because of its layout and all this swoop and turns and all that kind of stuff, but my god, I absolutely love that track to bits. I love that. I think it's great, even on sim racing and stuff like that. If you drive on Qatar, it's so cool. So yeah, really looking forward to watching that race. And of course, we have a sprint race as well, so more points on the line for our drivers and our top 3 title contenders. So yeah, folks, look, that was the Las Vegas Grand Prix, the Las Vegas weekend. It has come and gone. Very sad, because I always love the build up to the Las Vegas Grand Prix. It's always really, really exciting. But chaps, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy afternoons and your busy schedules to talk about the Las Vegas weekend. It was great talking to you about all of the lovely drama moments and all of the action and all of the good stuff. And hopefully we get a good weekend with Qatar. So folks, chaps, thank you so much for joining me this afternoon.
Thank you.
Awesome. Well, look, folks, until next weekend, if you did enjoy tonight's episode, definitely make sure to click that like button or follow button or love button, whatever platform that you are listening and watching this on. Definitely make sure to subscribe to the channel if you're over here on Spotify, and also on YouTube and whatever platform that you are listening to today's episode. And definitely make sure to support us whatever way you can if you did enjoy it. But yeah, look, until next week, folks, let us know what your thoughts were on the Las Vegas Grand Prix. this whole championship battle that we have going on here. Do you think Lando is going to take the World Drivers' Championship trophy? Does he have two hands firmly on that? Or, unfortunately, is that looking like that trophy is going to slip away? We'll all see what happens anyway, but let us know your thoughts on everything we talked about here. So until next time, folks, we will see you all for the Qatar Grand Prix. Adios.